this is an informal meeting between these three representatives, informal representatives of the Confederate government, on the one hand, and Lincoln and his Secretary of State, to have some discussions about what can be done. And there's no agreement from the outset about what the discussions are supposed to be about, which is a whole other story.
And nobody took any minutes at the meeting.
That's by agreement.
By agreement,
That there will be no minutes. This is not a formal meeting, so on and so forth.
Okay.
The Southern representatives start, as you say, trying to figure out whether there can't be some sort of arrangement that will allow peace to occur without reunion, that will allow, because these are the instructions they've been given by Jefferson Davis. These are the only terms we will accept, is any kind of peace must leave the Confederacy independent. And as you say, Lincoln replies both, no, the only way this war is going to end is when you return to your rightful place within the Union, and two, no, I will not go back on any anti-slavery measures I have already implemented. That's the version of events that gets publicized at the time, and that Jefferson Davis then presents to the Confederate public in order to rally their spirits. Davis had no hopes for this meeting to begin with. From his point of view, he was letting these people go and participate in these discussions just to prove to them and everybody else that Lincoln was unbending.
Wasn't Lincoln doing the same in reverse? He wasn't going to go, and he only went to prove that it wouldn't work.
Precisely. Yeah. Davis and Lincoln have the mirror opposite and therefore similar purposes in participating in this to begin with. But something else is apparently going on based on memoirs left by two of the Confederate participants and eventually corroborated by the third, Hunter. And that is that apparently Lincoln and Seward said more than that. They also said, well, we're not going to go back on the Emancipation Proclamation, but Supreme Court may strike it down, or at least say that the Emancipation Proclamation is no longer in effect now that the war is over.
Because it was a war measure.
Because it was a war measure. Yeah. They caution the Confederate representatives that the 13th Amendment has just been passed by the Congress and is already headed to the states for ratification. But I believe it's Seward who, according to this account, says, on the other hand, since support for this measure is largely based on the anger generated by the war, now that the war is over, it's possible that this amendment won't get ratified. And in fact, if you guys come back into the Union quickly enough and have your rights restored as states, you may be able to participate in the process that denies ratification to the 13th Amendment. So maybe slavery won't be wiped out. And finally, Lincoln says, and even if slavery is wiped out, maybe you'll get compensated. Maybe the federal government will compensate you for your slavery.
You know, that's interesting because he tried to head off the war 4 years before by bringing in all these Southerners and saying, look, how about compensated emancipation? They said, not on your tintype.
And he tries to do that with the border states during the war, who say the same thing to him right up into the middle of the war. Not a chance, not a chance. They're as dedicated to slavery as the Confederacy is. They just have a different way of trying to protect it. So I don't think Lincoln and Seward meant any of this. I think this was their way of trying to lure
these people
in. Yes, I do think they said it.
Okay.
I do. I think there's enough. The fact that all three of these Confederates said so, two of them at the time, and said so, by the way, in their own private correspondence among themselves, suggests to me that they did, that Lincoln and Seward did indeed say this.
So that would be a very good reason why Lincoln and Seward would have left nothing in writing.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, they didn't take it seriously, though Lincoln did try to get his cabinet to approve compensation. And the cabinet wasn't having any part of it, and so Lincoln dropped it.
Yeah. One of the arguments, as I understand it, was that $400 million is the cost of, I don't know, a couple of months of the war, something like that. So you pay them off, and you save billions in effect, or whatever.
Right. right. But Lincoln tries to get it compensation endorsed after the war is effectively over, and after the North has already spent all this money and blood in prosecuting the war, and the cabinet say, that's right, we're going to compensate these traitors for the loss of property that we actually don't believe they ever should have owned, because we think it's morally wrong. At this point, no. This is too late for any of this.
When you put it that way.
That's right.
And
But
no way.
various sectors of the Southern planter class are trying throughout the last year of the war to broker some kind of deal like this. And so what takes place on the River Queen, where they think they are being perhaps offered such a deal, is similar to what occurs where Joseph Johnston is trying to surrender to Sherman, and where Campbell is trying to reconvene the Virginia legislature, and earlier where some powerful, influential people in Alabama are talking about maybe suing for a separate peace. In each case, the idea of holding on to slavery, or some version of slavery, or some slavery by another name, is one of the things that the Southern planters are hoping to achieve.
Do you think they were taking, these steps, you describe these steps as steps to save slavery, and I suppose minimally one might say, well, at least to attain compensation if slavery was given up. You think that this came about because they understood that it's all up, it's all over for them?
Oh yes, none of this occurs. None of the steps that I've just outlined, or at least referred to, occur until the individuals involved have decided that the attempt to sustain a separate slaveholding republic has been a failure, that they've lost this war.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, a leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.